Hi, my friends, it's Mrs. Giroux. We're going to read chapter 18, the last chapter of our story, The Meanest Doll in the World. And our last chapter is called Home Sweet Home Once Again. On Thursday morning, Annabelle attempted something for what she had not had the courage in quite some time. She left the dollhouse, walked down the Palmer's hallway to Nora's room, and knocked on the Funcraft's front door. The captain was again banished to the first floor, and Mimi continued to lie unmoving on Kate's desk. So Annabelle felt safe for the first time in a very long time. Her heart was heavy, though, and she knew she wouldn't feel better until she and Tiffany had talked about their fight. "Hi, Annabelle," Tiffany greeted her. "Hi," Annabelle replied. "Tiffany, we need to talk. Can we go somewhere private?" Tiffany looked around Nora's room. "How about the shoebox in the closet?" she suggested. So Annabelle and Tiffany sat in the empty shoebox, which was lying on its side at the back of Nora's closet. "We need to talk, don't you think?" said Annabelle a bit nervously. "About Mimi?" asked Tiffany. "No, about our fight." Tiffany poked at her shoe. "Yeah, I think that was what you meant." Annabelle drew in a deep breath and let it out slowly. "Okay," she said. "You see, I thought we were best friends." "I thought so too," said Tiffany. "Then why did you tell me and Mimi all of those private things I told you? I know I didn't say not to tell them to anybody, but I thought you would understand that." "But Annabelle, I didn't tell Mimi anything. I barely even talked to her." "Then how did she know that I fell in the spider's web on the exploration with you and Auntie Sarah? And how did she know that I think I always ruin things?" Tiffany shook her head. "I only said those things once, the night you and I snuck up to the attic to talk." Tiffany had been frowning, but now her eyes widened. Oh, she cried. "Annabelle, what? Remember when we heard that noise and we thought that maybe it was a mouse? I bet it was Mimi. I bet she was up in the attic eavesdropping on our conversation. And," Tiffany continued, "I bet the mouse we thought we heard at BJ's was Mimi crawling into the backpack." "Oh, ooh," exclaimed Annabelle. "And then Mimi was so sneaky. She was devious. Those other things she said about you and Auntie Sarah planning an exploration without me?" "We never planned an exploration without you." "Mimi said you did, though. She also said that you said I wasn't fun to be around, that I'm boring, and you were tired of hanging around with a fraidy cat. I guess she just made up those things." "Of course she did," exclaimed Tiffany. "I would never say anything like that about you. Don't you know that, Annabelle? You really are my best friend." Tiffany paused and looked thoughtfully at Annabelle. "How can you believe such things?" "I guess," Annabelle answered, "because those are the things I worry about. They're the things I'm afraid might be true." "I wonder how Mimi knew all that. She certainly was smart for such a horrible doll." "Tiffany, I'm sorry I didn't believe you, and I'm sorry I called you a traitor. And I'm sorry I called you a liar and said that you were my former best friend. You'll always be my best friend." "And you'll always be mine," replied Annabelle. By the time Kate returned from school that afternoon, Annabelle and the dolls were in the places in which Kate had left them the night before when she had tidied up her dollhouse. Annabelle was propped against the end of her bed, looking out into Kate's room. So she had a good view of things when Kate delicately picked up Mimi, studied her, and then called, "Grandma Catherine." A moment or two later, Grandma Catherine appeared in Kate's doorway. Kate held Mimi out to her and said, "Look what I found in my room last weekend. I don't know who she belongs to. She isn't Nora's, and I asked at school, and she isn't Harmony's or Anya's or Rachel's. Nora asked Martha, and she doesn't belong to her either." Said Grandma Catherine. "That's strange. You have no idea how she got in your room?" Kate shook her head. "Suddenly she was just lying on my floor. Nora thought she saw her jump off my bookcase," she added. Grandma Catherine frowned, but all she said was, "Well, I suppose you should take her to the Lost and Found at school. That seems like the best thing to do." "Okay," agreed Kate. "I'm sure she belongs to one of Nora's friends." On Friday morning, Kate stuffed Mean Mimi into her backpack, and took her to school. When she returned that afternoon, she reported to Grandma Catherine that she had left the doll in the lost and found bin. Tiffany, said Annabel late that night as they played in the nursery of the doll's house, I had a horrible thought today. Tiffany put down the alphabet block she'd been tossing from hand to hand. What was it? She asked. Well, I was just wondering, what if Mean Mimi was pretending? What if she was fooling us and she isn't in PDS at all? I mean, what if she's still alive? Ah, Tiffany shrieked softly. Annabelle, that really is a horrible thought. I know. Well, we can't do anything about it. Breathe in, breathe out. The truth is, Annabelle said after a moment, she probably is in PDS. That makes the most sense. Yes, agreed Tiffany, it does. Tiffany, do you think about the dolls at BJ's house very often? Every day. And I wonder what they're thinking now. What do you mean? I wonder what they think happened to Mean Mimi. After all, she's been gone for a long time, and as far as they know, she just disappeared. I'm sure she didn't tell anyone what she was going to do, so all Waterfall and the others knew was that suddenly Mean Mimi wasn't around anymore. Do they think she's hiding now? Do they think Kelly lost her somewhere? I don't know, replied Tiffany, but I bet they're feeling pretty comfortable. I bet they think she's gone for good. Annabelle smiled. I hope so. We know she's in the lost and found, and Callie won't think to look for her there because she didn't take Mimi to school. You know what I've been wondering about? Asked Tiffany. Who? Technoman. Technoman? Why? I feel bad for him, but he was evil, said Annabelle. No, he wasn't. Not really. He just had to act tough for Mimi. And you saw what happened when his helmet came off. He was embarrassed. It was like he'd been lying to everyone and suddenly he was caught in his lie. But I don't think he's a bad doll, and I bet he got back in the bucket of action figures before BJ came home. I wonder if he's made friends with the other dolls yet, though. Annabelle shook her head slowly. I don't know. She traced the letter S on one of the blocks. You know what the sad thing is? No matter what happened to Mean Mimi, she probably thought she didn't deserve it. If she's in permanent doll state, she can't think anything, pointed out Tiffany. Well, no. But before that, before she jumped off the shelf, I'm thinking about all her life. When she was here at the Palmers and everyone realized how mean she was and we tried to trap her and everything. And before that, when she was at BJ's and she kept doing things to make the other dolls mad at her. It seems like no matter what she did or how people reacted to her, she still thought she was better than everyone. That she was right and they were wrong, and that everyone was mean to her. Didn't she ever understand? Maybe not, said Tiffany. Remember Francine? Even after Miss Feldman caught her teasing Kate and reminded her of the class rules and made her apologize, Francine was still mean, as if it was Kate's fault that Francine had gotten in trouble. Annabelle sighed. I guess that's the way it is with bullies. They never learn. Maybe not with all bullies. Maybe just some, said Tiffany. You know what? I just realized that your idea worked, Annabelle. What? Remember you suggested that we do nothing about Mimi? You said not to poke a stick in the hornet's nest, and that if we left her alone, she would get into big trouble and do herself in, and that's exactly what happened. Annabelle smiled. How do you know that's what would happen? Because Annabelle is a thinker, and Auntie Sarah from her room. I'm sorry, girls. I couldn't help overhearing your conversation. That's okay, said Annabelle. Come downstairs, Auntie Sarah called. It's time for a talk. Another talk, Tiffany whispered to Annabelle with a little small groan. I think this one will be more pleasant than the one about our fight, Annabelle whispered back. Annabelle and Tiffany followed Auntie Sarah all the way downstairs to the parlor, where the rest of the dolls were gathered. We need a family gathering announced. We need a family meeting, announced Auntie Sarah. Can I come to a doll family meeting? Asked Tiffany. You're part of the family, Mama replied, and Tiffany grinned. I want to say, Auntie Sarah began when everyone had settled down, that I think we owe Annabelle a thank you and an apology. For what? Asked Bobby. A thank you for showing us a wise way in which to deal with a menace, and an apology for not putting more faith in her ideas. Annabelle was exactly right about Mimi, and I think we should recognize that. Annabelle, I know sometimes you worry that you're not as daring as Tiffany. Or you, added Annabelle. Or me. Or as brave as Bobby, Auntie Sarah continued. Or the Funcrafts, added Annabelle. Or the Funcrafts. But you have other strengths. You have a good brain and you put it to good use. You have a good heart, said Papa. Yeah, said Bobby, but he smiled at his sister. And you're a very good friend, said Tiffany, even if we fight sometimes. All friends fight sometimes, said Uncle Doll. Annabelle went to bed that night thinking warm thoughts about friendship and her good brain and heart. The warm thoughts stayed with her the next morning while she lay stiffly in the dollhouse as Kate got dressed. This was often Annabelle's worry time, and today she was tempted to worry about what might happen if Mean Mimi weren't in terminal doll state after all, if she had been doing a very good job of faking and might one day return to the Palmer's house in Kate's backpack. But she reminded her good brain to think positively. The warm thoughts were still with her later in the morning when the Palmer's house was quiet, and Auntie Sarah said she thought it was high time she returned to the attic to begin work on her spider farm. Now that the menace is gone, she added, does anyone want to come with me? I bet Tiffany will, said Annabelle. And you? Asked Auntie Sarah. Annabelle thought for a moment. Well, I'm still afraid of spiders, she admitted finally. But I do have an idea about how to harvest their silk. Wonderful, said Auntie Sarah, clapping her hands together. You may show us tonight. But that evening, before Annabelle had a chance to show off her idea, Nora snagged her and Tiffany and Bailey and plopped them down on the floor of the bathroom. Time for Miami Beach a go-go, she said. Nora was once again dressed in her bathing suit and goggles and flippers. She ran water in the bathtub and tossed the Funcrafts into the small waves. Then she placed Annabelle in the soap dish. You can be the lifeguard, she said. Annabelle smiled to herself. So this time she had a role in Nora's drama. Maybe she wasn't floating and bobbing with the Funcrafts, but she had been assigned an important job. Annabelle gazed ahead of her at the corner of the bathroom and thought she detected a small movement by the floor. She stared hard and realized that a spider was spinning a web there. A spider, she thought. Annabelle thought of Auntie Sarah's spider and how they worked quickly and diligently so that they were able to spin web after web. They start new webs and they work, and if the webs are damaged or destroyed, they simply repair them. I'm tenacious, thought Annabelle, and diligent. I watch and I wait, and my good brain and I are tenacious and diligent like spiders. Annabelle, in her spot in the soap dish, made a list in her head. Tenacious, diligent, a good brain, a good heart, a good friend. Then she added, a family who loves me, good friends in return. That was nothing boring about any of that. The end. Hope you enjoyed the story. Stay tuned for our next read aloud after break. Have a good one. Bye.